Live from Lagos, Nigeria, this is News Central. I'm Felicity Ezewike. The top stories tonight. President Tinubu swears in new defense minister, presents for confirmation additional names of ambassadorial nominees. Senate intensifies probe into collapse of Safe School initiative, summons ministers of finance, education and defense. U.S. President Donald Trump to meet leaders of Rwanda and DR Congo in Washington to sign new peace deal and critical investments. And in business, Securities and Exchange Commission warns Nigerians against transacting with online investment platform Glorious Wealth Fund.
And in sports, just days to the kickoff of the Africa Cup of Nations, Super Eagles captain Truls Ekong drops a bombshell announcing his retirement from international football. Details and more later.
We begin tonight at the presidential seat, where President Bola Tinubu has sworn in the immediate past Chief of Defense Staff, retired General Christopher Musa, as the new Minister of Defense. General Musa took the oath of office on Thursday at the State House, Abuja. His swearing-in comes after the Senate on Wednesday confirmed his nomination to the role by the President. General Musa vows to set up a full-scale investigation into attacks across the country, as well as the killing of Brigade Commander Brigadier General Musa Uba in Borno State, along with other attacks on senior military officers. Top military officials have expressed confidence in ongoing efforts to restore peace across Nigeria. Bishop of the Roman Catholic Diocese of Sokoto, Matthew Kuka, says the country's security challenges are well understood, insisting that restoring normalcy must remain the top priority. He noted that President Tinubu has shown clear determination to reposition Nigeria's security architecture, describing the efforts as being in very good hands. Meanwhile, newly sworn-in Minister of Defense Christopher Musa says Nigerians' expectations are huge.
I can assure you within the shortest possible time, Nigerians will see results. I want to use this medium to appreciate all Nigerians. Nigerians have shown me love, and I will guarantee them that I am going to work whatever it takes to ensure that Nigeria is secured. Yes, I just met Mr. President, and he reiterated his mind on the aspect that we must make sure that Nigeria is secured. Nigerians should go back and sleep with their eyes closed, go back to their farms, schools open without being molested, everyone being carried together to make sure that Nigeria continues to grow in line with the renewed program of the Mr. President.
We just need restoration of normalcy in this country by any means possible. And I think that this job is in very good hands. It does seem very clearly that the president wants to reposition the issues of security, and I think the situation is in very good hands. We are on all fours as far as that is concerned. Look, rain, thunder, sunshine, whatever it takes to get this mess under control. These guys need to be flushed out. Normalcy needs to return to our country. Laughter and joy has to come back to Nigeria within the shortest time possible.
The list of ambassadorial nominees has continued to swell as President Bola Tinubu has sent more names to the Senate. Among the fresh 34 names forwarded is Ibo Etek Ibas, the immediate past sole administrator of Rivers State and former chief of naval staff. The list also includes former Senator Ita Inang, former Imo State First Lady Chioma Hakim, and former Minister of Interior and ex-Army Chief Abdurrahman Dambazua. Senate President Godswill Akpabio read the president's correspondence during Thursday's plenary, where Tinubu appealed for swift legislative action to enable the government to fill diplomatic postings. I'm now joined by a renowned professor of political science and former National Electoral Commissioner Adele Jinodu. It's a pleasure to have you on the news. Thanks for being here. Talk to us about some of the key factors you believe that the president might have considered in selecting this mix of 34 career diplomats and 31 non-career nominees from all 36 states.
Well, I think, good evening. It's nice to be on News Central. I think it is clearly within the prerogative of Mr. President to nominate ambassadors for confirmation by the Senate. He knows what he wants from the ambassadors, what he expects from them, and he has an idea of the type of people he can rely on to push forward our relations with the countries to which they've been accredited. So I don't have any problem with that. It is the duty of the Senate to vet the nominees and to pronounce whether they confirm, whether they push them forward, whether they confirm the appointment or not. And of course, there are processes for doing that. At the level of the president, there is security vetting. At the level of the Senate, there is security vetting. I have no ideas, their background. And I think it is also up to the Nigerians who know them to speak out during the confirmation process. I think it's a pity that the confirmation processes for nominees for executive branch appointments, ministers, ambassadors, and so on, that process at the National Assembly has not been as thorough as it should be, because they are supposed to vet and confirm. They also have an idea of the background of the nominees, they interview them, they question them.
Yeah, but there are some names that are quite popular, sir. We have names like Iboetek Ibas. He was just in Rivers State as a sole administrator. We also have a familiar name there, Chioma Ohakim, wife of former governor of Imo State. And then we have other names as well. We have Itai Nang. He was a very popular name at some point at the National Assembly. These are some names. Ifeanyi Ugwanyi is also there as well. So with what we know publicly about these names, what are your thoughts as to their nomination as diplomats for Nigeria?
Look, it's not what we know as Nigerians. If we know certain things about them, we forward them to the National Assembly as part of the process of confirming them. I don't know them. I have no idea who they are, apart from the names that they are popular names. But the important point is that it is the prerogative of the president to nominate ambassadors designate for confirmation by the Senate, and he has done that. Now it is for the rest of us as Nigerians, those who know about them, to come forward and offer views, information that will help the Senate in their confirmation. Unfortunately, I don't know any of them.
So what kind of questions? What kind? Okay, this is two-faced. What kind of questions do you think would elicit the right answers if the Senate is looking to get the best candidates? And what would be, in your mind, some of the challenges that the Senate Committee on Foreign Affairs might face in screening all 65 nominees within, I think, a one-week directive from the Senate President?
Look, they have a CV. I don't have their CV. The Senate will have the CV. They will look through the CV and ask questions based on the CV. If I was interviewing somebody for an appointment, I have the CV before me. I will look at the CV, look at the job description, and ask questions in relation to the CV, but I don't know their CVs.
But we know broadly what a diplomat, an ambassador is supposed to do for the country, whether career or non-career ambassadors. And as much as you might not have their CV, what would be some of the challenges you think the committee might face? And again, what kinds of questions do you think might be appropriate for screening individuals who want to go, who have been nominated to represent Nigeria in public and in other countries?
Listen, in fairness to these candidates, I don't have the information to be able to even know who they are and what they can do. The point is, the Senate will ask questions based on the CV, expectations, what have you done in the past? How does that relate to what you are doing now? And what do you want to do? But unfortunately, you should not trivialize the confirmation process by saying, sing the national anthem. Take a bow. It's a serious matter, and it is the duty of the Senate to question them, not my duty. I don't know them.
Okay, but what would you say? The president has been in power. This is since 2023. We're in 2025, the tail end of 2025, and at a point, the lack of ambassadors was an issue. I mean, we talked about it in the media as well. It took him this long. Do you have concerns as to the effectiveness of these ambassadors when they finally resume, and how long it's going to take? Will they be able to resume during the tenure of this president before the next election?
That is a different question, and I have my views on that. I can answer that. Great. I think it is too late in the day. It is too late in the day to start appointing ambassadors designate or nominating ambassadors designate, because that process is still going to, once they are confirmed, it still has their names, their agreement has to be sent to the countries to vet and see if they want them to serve in their country. That will take another process of 2, 3, 4 months. So it is definitely late. And I think it's unfortunate that it has taken so long to do this, and coming at a time when it is clear that pressures from outside the country have shown that there is this major gap in our representation abroad, that we do not have ambassadors in situ to push and defend the case for Nigeria. I think that is important. The second problem that I have had with the nominees, and I think journalists have to do investigative reporting themselves, apart from interviews. Do your own investigation. For example, I've had people complain that the career ambassadors that have been appointed are all from the NIA. So that also creates problem between the career, the politics of the politics of the career diplomats, those who are from the NIA, essentially security from the National Intelligence Agency, and those who are in the mainstream of the ministry as ambassadors. So, and I understand that some of the career ambassadors in the mainstream are not happy that most of those who have been appointed as career ambassadors are not in the mainstream. So that is part of the politics of appointment, just as some of the career ambassadors in the past have objected that there are too many non-career ambassadors.
Yeah, I think you finally gave us some bone tonight with the last question, sir. Thank you very much, Professor Jinadu, for your time on the news.
Thank you. It's my pleasure.
Coming up tonight, world leaders converge on Imo State for West Africa Economic Summit. That's after the break. Stay with us. You're watching tonight on News Central. A reminder of our top stories. President Tinubu swears the new defense minister presents for confirmation additional names of ambassadorial nominees. Senate intensifies probe into collapse of Safe School Initiative. Summon ministers of finance, education, and defense. Off our shores, U.S. President to meet leaders of Rwanda and DR Congo in Washington to sign new peace deal and critical investments. Thank you for staying with us. Let's tell you now that the Senate has intensified its investigation into the collapse of Safe School Initiative, issuing summons to the Minister of Finance, Education and Defense. The lawmakers are seeking explanation on why the decade-old program fails to secure Nigerian schools despite receiving over $30 million and other substantial funding. This follows the adoption of a formal work plan by the Senate Ad Hoc Committee on the Safe School Initiative during its inaugural sitting in Abuja. Committee Chairman Senator Oju Zokalu says the panel is determined to trace all funds allocated to the initiative and uncover why school children remain vulnerable to repeated attacks.
Commitment and well-defined policy framework, the reality on ground is grim. We have seen a tragic continuation of mass adoption, including the Dapchi, Kangara, Janebi, and most recently in Keffi, the data review that since Chibok incident, over 1,680 school children had been kidnapped, with over 180 fatalities in approximately 70 attacks between April 2014 and December 2022. We are determined to find out why, after such enormous investment and international attention, our school remain soft targets. We will not rest until we look into the Nigerian parents in their eyes and assure them that their child's path to education is protected.
Staying at the upper legislative chamber, the Senate has passed a bill to amend the Terrorism Prevention Prohibition Act 2022, reclassifying kidnapping and hostage-taking as acts of terrorism. Under the new proposal, anyone convicted of kidnapping, including kidnappers, financiers, informants, or logistic supporters, will face the mandatory death penalty with no option for fine or reduced sentence. The bill, sponsored by Opeyemi Bamidele, now moves to the Senate Committees on Judiciary, National Security and Intelligence, and Interior for public hearing and refinement. For this conversation, I'm joined by a policy analyst, Mark Jacob, as well as a legal practitioner, Haruna Musa. Thank you, gentlemen, for being here. Let's start with you, Haruna. How likely is it that the mandatory death penalty for kidnappers, financiers, and informants will deter Nigeria's rising abduction cases? Haruna, if you can hear me, the question is for you. Death penalty. The last time we had a death penalty that was actually carried out was in Edo State in 2016. That's according to Amnesty International. We don't actually carry out death penalties, but people are being sentenced to death in law. So do you think that this death penalty will deter Nigeria's rising cases of abductions? Okay, I think we lost Haruna, so I'll just point the question to you, Mark. Please take it up.
Keffi, I would like to say from the beginning that I was Attorney General way back in 2005 and 2006 in Kaduna State. And within that period, I personally supervised the hanging of two armed robbers who entered the house, raped the wife and daughters in front of their husband and father, and they killed everybody. They were caught. They appealed up to the Supreme Court before the sentence was actually executed, and I was part of that exercise. So I can say from a very rich background of information that the death penalty does not in any way stop criminals from undergoing or executing their criminal intentions. And in today's Nigeria, our basic challenge is that there is a complicity and a total refusal of government agencies, the institutions that are empowered by our Constitution to take care of citizens, to prevent non-state actors from holding arms and executing and killing Nigerians all over the country, that there is no intention or political will of those in government to stop the execution and killing of Nigerians. This is very painful to see. This is very a shameful act that it can be related to Nigeria.
Yeah, but the
optics will be free to move around in the country and kill as many as they want. And the only thing the National Assembly can do is to go about talking about a law. The laws that require or that prohibit these things are existent. It's not the absence of law that is causing the problems in Nigeria. No, it is the absence of political will to implement the law. And that is exactly why I feel sad about Nigeria today.
All right, let's look at it from another perspective. The senators, the National Assembly itself, are being pushed. The other day, we had the Senate president say that they need expedited action because the U.S. is pressing down on their neck. And then you add to the fact that this bill for amendment was introduced just about a week ago, and it enjoys the support of the entire Senate. So my question would be, is it just for posturing? Because if you say they know that we do not actually carry out the death penalty punishment in full, is it for optics? Or do you think perhaps in their way they are acknowledging the severity of the situation we are in and trying to do their part to push the needle towards ending insecurity?
Personally, I believe and I see that the senators are not honest to Nigerians. Like I said earlier, it is not the absence of legislation that is our problem. It is the absence of political will to execute law, to enforce law. There is no requirement of any new legislation that will make it mandatory for the security agencies to go after those who are killing Nigerians. The governments of several states have said that they know where the killers are. They know where the camps are. They know they can see them using technology. They know when these bandits are moving. And ordinary Nigerians have seen, even in Niger State recently, the video was online, viral, where these motorcycles with terrorists were moving in their hundreds from one village to the other before they executed their plans. How can the Nigerian security agencies and the senators pretend that they need a law before they stop the movement of terrorists from one community to the other?
All right, let me interject again, Mark, quickly. I know we have Haruna, but I want to ask you this question because you don't seem to have a lot of faith in this pushing for the death penalty. So what, in your capacity, do you think the National Assembly can be doing now to push for more political action or more decisive action by the political elites to get us out of the situation we're currently in?
Currently, we have a National Assembly that is populated by a majority of APC senators and APC members of the House of Reps. For God's sake, let them for once take Nigerians serious. Let them for once show that their interest is not about allowances or packages. Let them for once show that they are interested in securing lives and property. The people, the terrorists that are moving from village to village are seen. They are known. Their camps are known. They kidnap people and people know where they are taken to. For God's sake, let us stop all the grammar. Let us stop all the drama and move into action. Let the federal government be moved and let the National Assembly, for instance, insist. Why is it that a school was going to be attacked? The kidnappers were seen. And 20 minutes before the kidnap, the military moved from the school. Why is that not a topical issue?
All right, Mark, we'll come back to you if we have more time, but let's see. I'm really sorry, but we'll come back to you if we have more time, but let's engage Haruna now. Hopefully his network is better. I wanted to ask you to explain a particular area of that announcement by Senate. In the lawmakers resolved to classify kidnapping as terrorism and to impose death penalty without the option of a fine and judicial discretion for all kidnapping offenses. I wanted you to speak to that fact because in order for someone to face the death penalty, they have to go through the judicial process. So explain to us what it really means technically when they say they just face the law, there should be no judicial discretion.
Very much, Felicity, for having me. You see, my main position or my main crux of the issue on this issue is that if you look at, we currently have the Terrorism Prevention Act of 2022, which is what is being repealed or trying to be amended by the Senate. Now, in that particular law, it's actually discusses so many offenses ranging from kidnapping, people who are financing kidnapping, who are facilitators, and punishment, but did not specifically mention death penalty. But I don't agree. I don't believe that imposing a death penalty is actually going to reduce the amount of crime, or is going to actually deter people from committing the offense. And I'm happy with your question that talks about judicial discretion, because before you get to the point of the death penalty, you have to get to the point of arrest, you have to get to the point of arraignment. After arraignment, you have to get to the point of conviction if found guilty. Now, the big question here is, from the point of arrest to the point of arraignment to the point of conviction, how long is it going to take for the trial? We already understand how our judicial system operates. This is a process that could take a number of years before you can get a conviction. What is the conviction rate today from when we started having insurgency in this country, date back from 2009 to date, which is probably around 17 years? What is the conviction? What is the number of convictions that we've been able to secure, commensurate to the number of attacks that we've had today? So the crux of the matter, or what I feel the Senate ought to do, is while imposing the issue of death penalty, the issue of a time frame within which an accused person will be arrested, tried, arraigned, tried before a court of competent jurisdiction should be specified. Okay. We've seen it in this country where the same House of Assembly or the National Assembly has actually imposed a time limit for matters involving election. We have time limit for pre-election matters and post-election matters. Why can't we have that when it has to do with the security of the country?
Okay, I think your issue really is with specifying timelines and exact punishment, and then issues with the blanket punishment for all of the accused. Thank you very much. I'm really sorry that's all the time we have for this conversation. The consensus between the both of you is that death penalty will not do much really in deterring criminality in terms of terrorism that we're looking at. Thank you once again, Mark and Haruna, for being here. Still ahead, U.S. authorities arrest Brian Cole, suspect in 2021 Capitol Hill bombs. President Bola Tinubu has reaffirmed the federal government's commitment to supporting Imo State's drive to become a major business and investment hub in Nigeria. Speaking through Vice President Kashim Shettima at the Imo Economic Summit, the president commended Governor Hope Uzodinma's development agenda and urged both local and international investors to invest in Imo State. News Center's Alex Obunaya has more.
All converging on Owerri for the Imo Economic Summit, an event designed to chart a new economic direction for the state. At the center of the conversations was President Bola Tinubu's assurance that the federal government stands firmly behind Imo State as it pushes to transform into a thriving business hub.
We see access to financing opportunities through institutions such as the Bank of Industry, the Development Bank of Nigeria, and our banks in the sector, along with the structured private-public partnerships in housing, transport, and renewable energy. All these possibilities converge to remind us that Imo is not just ready for investment. Imo is prime for transformation.
Earlier, Governor Hope Uzodinma reiterated the state's preparedness to welcome any investor willing to invest.
So when we came into office in 2020, we decided to go back to the basics, to stop trying to do what the government cannot do well, to focus instead on what the government must do, and that is to create perfect enabling environment for investments and developments to thrive. I can proudly declare, without fear of contradiction, that almost 6 years down the road, the foundation for investment has been laid by providing safety nets which embody infrastructure, power, security, and stability.
The summit also served as a call to action for investors, government officials, development partners, and keynote speakers echoed a unified message: think Imo, invest Imo.
It's very, very important that you attract investment and that you have an economic vision for the future of the kind that Governor Uzodimma plainly has. And if Nigeria is going to achieve its potential, you are completely right. And if we're going to find jobs for those hundreds of millions of kids, then you're completely right that you have to focus on all the things that we've been rightly talking about.
What kind of future do you want to leave to your sons and daughters, succeeding generations? Therefore, not only leaders, political leaders, but civil society, business leaders, you have moral duties and political duties to make sure that our succeeding generations will live without any fear of climate change issues.
As discussions wrapped up, stakeholders expressed confidence that the summit marks the beginning of a more prosperous era for the state, one where strategic partnerships and bold policies will guide Imo into the future. For the people of Imo State, the economic road ahead appears promising, strengthened by renewed federal backing and growing investor interest. In Imo for News Central, Alex Obunaya.
The Petroleum and Natural Gas Senior Staff Association of Nigeria, PENGASN, has threatened to take action against companies that have failed to review the wages of its members despite the rising cost of living and the impact of currency devaluation. President of PENGASN, Festus Osifo, while addressing journalists after the union's final National Executive Council meeting for the year 2025, says that employers must urgently adjust wages or brace for intense action from the union.
Today, a lot of companies, we have achieved successes, but there are still few that we are still discussing their CBAs, that we are not yet there. We wish to use this opportunity to call on these companies that are still foot dragging, that are still holding back, even with the massive devaluation that has occurred in our country, that still don't want to fix the remuneration of our members. We are calling on them to do the needful, because for us in PENGASN, we will push without holding back. We will push using everything in our arsenal to ensure that the needful is done.
Away from Nigeria, U.S. President Donald Trump is set to strike a peace agreement between Rwanda and the Democratic Republic of Congo amid persistent violence. The White House says President Paul Kagame of Rwanda and President Felix Tshisekedi of DR Congo will meet with Trump for the signing of the peace accord. The deal comes more than 5 months after their foreign ministers held talks with Trump and announced an earlier agreement aimed at ending hostilities. We can actually now confirm that authorities in the United States have arrested a suspect they say was involved in leaving pipe bombs near the headquarters of the country's two major political parties in Washington, D.C. during the night before the Capitol riot on January 6, 2021. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Department of Justice on Thursday identified the suspect as Brian Cole Jr. in a joint news conference. He explained that the investigation involved sorting through 3 million lines of data. Officials under President Donald Trump also touted the arrest as a victory for the current Republican administration. U.S. Attorney explained that Cole would be charged with transporting an illegal explosive device and attempting malicious destruction by means of explosive materials. We'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we'll bring you business, sports, and entertainment news. Do stay with us.
This segment is brought to you by MoneyPoint.
Analysts expect Nigeria's GDP growth to rebound to 4.22% in the fourth quarter of 2025, up from 3.98% in the third quarter. In the third quarter of 2025, GDP grew by 3.98%, an increase from 3.86% in the third quarter of 2024, but lower than the second quarter, 4.23%. Oil production averaged 1.64 million barrels per day in the third quarter, down from 1.68 million barrels per day in the second quarter, even though the oil sector grew 5.84% year on year. The non-oil sector expanded, driven by stronger performance in trade, financial services, agriculture, and ICT, supporting expectations of stronger GDP numbers in the fourth quarter. Overall, full year 2025 GDP growth is projected at 3.92%. Securities and Exchange Commission Nigeria has cautioned the public to avoid dealings with Glorious Wealth Fund, declaring the platform unlicensed and unregistered to carry out capital market activities. The Securities and Exchange Commission said the fund falsely claims to offer investment in Nigerian stocks and other financial instruments under its supervision, a claim it labels false, misleading, and fraudulent. It warned that the fund's operations show traits of an illegal investment scheme and said Nigerians who invest face serious risk of fraud and potential loss of funds. The regulator urged investors to verify any company's registration status on its official portal before transacting. We will be back with a market report after this break. The all-share index advanced modestly to 145,476.15 points, gaining 0.10% as market capitalization rose to 92.72 trillion naira, reflecting sustained investor interest. Here is what the snapshot looks like. Sectoral performance recorded broad gains, with banking up 0.91%, insurance rising 1.56%, oil and gas adding 0.08%, consumer goods increasing 0.28%, and industrial goods advancing 0.48%, reflecting strengthened market sentiment. And that does it for business. Tunde has the sports news.
And welcome to sports. The captain of the Nigerian men's national football team, William Truce Ekong, has stunningly announced his retirement from international football. The 32-year-old made the announcement on his official X handle, saying playing for Nigeria had been the greatest privilege of his life. The announcement comes exactly 17 days before the kickoff of the Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco. Truce Ekong was born in the Netherlands to a Dutch mother and a Nigerian father. He made his senior international debut for the Super Eagles of Nigeria on the 13th of June 2015, playing 90 minutes in an AFCON qualifying match against Chad. He won a bronze medal at the 2016 Olympic Games in Rio and also played at the 2018 FIFA World Cup in Russia. He featured at 3 Africa Cup of Nations tournaments and was named player of the tournament at the 2023 edition in Cote d'Ivoire after leading the Super Eagles to a second place finish. His tally of 5 goals at the AFCON is the current record for the highest number of goals scored by a defender in the history of the AFCON. He retires with 83 caps and 8 goals, and he's currently signed to Saudi Pro League side Al Kholoud. Meanwhile, 7-time Olympian Olufunke Oshonaike has made history as the first Nigerian appointed to the International Olympic Committee Athletes Commission following her nomination by IOC President Kirsty Coventry. Oshonaike, one of Africa's most decorated table tennis players, is among 5 new members appointed to ensure the commission reaches full composition ahead of the Milano Cortina 2026 Olympic Winter Games. Oshonaike competed in 7 consecutive Olympic Games from Atlanta 1996 to Tokyo in 2020. She currently serves on both the Nigeria National Olympic Committee Athletes Commission and the Nigeria Table Tennis Athletes Commission. Meanwhile, former England defender Rio Ferdinand will conduct the draw for the 2026 FIFA World Cup tomorrow at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C. Tomorrow, the 47-year-old former Manchester United captain will be joined by broadcaster Samantha Johnson and a host of sporting greats, including Tom Brady, Wayne Gretzky, Aaron Judge, and Shaquille O'Neal. Supermodel Heidi Klum, comedian Kevin Hart, actor, producer Danny Ramirez will co-host the event. Before the draw, there'll be live music performances from Andrea Bocelli, Robbie Williams, and Nicole Scherzinger, while FIFA President Gianni Infantino and US President Donald Trump are both expected to make speeches. The ceremony is built to start at 6 p.m. Nigerian time and is expected to take about 90 minutes. And finally, Alexander Usyk has been granted the opportunity to make a voluntary defense of his WBC heavyweight title after saying he wanted to fight Deontay Wilder next. Unified heavyweight champion Usyk said this week that Wilder was his first option for his next fight. Wilder is not ranked in the WBA, WBC or IBF top 10, meaning Usyk may have to vacate some of his titles to fight him. But the WBC announced today at their annual general convention that they would not immediately call a mandatory defense for the Ukrainian for their belt, opening the door for a world title fight between the pair. Usyk has last fought in July when he stopped Londoner Daniel Dubois in round 5 to become two-time undisputed heavyweight champion. But in November, the 38-year-old decided to relinquish his WBO title, elevating Britain's Fabio Wardley to heavyweight champion. The WBC also confirmed that a potential fight between British boxers Lawrence Okolie and Moses Itama would determine the next mandatory challenger for the WBC belt. And that's all we have on sports tonight. Kate is up next with entertainment.
The entertainment news you need tonight is with Kate. Hi, Kate. Looking gorgeous as always.
Thank you very much. How are you doing today?
I'm great.
All right. Tonight in the world of entertainment, Nigerian senator and businessman Nnamdi Kanu has issued a strong warning to individuals spreading false and defamatory content about him online, vowing to pursue full legal action against those involved. In a statement released by his media office, Kanu condemned what he described as a coordinated campaign of cyber stalking, misinformation, and character assassination across social media platforms. The senator revealed that his legal team has been instructed to formally petition security agencies, including the Nigeria Police Force and cybercrime authorities, to investigate and identify those behind the publications. Kanu also urged the public to disregard unverified reports, warning against the dangers of spreading false information in the digital space. He maintained that he remains focused on his legislative duties and personal engagement and will no longer tolerate attempts to drag his name through the mud. Moving on, Puerto Rican superstar Bad Bunny has reclaimed the crown as Spotify's most streamed global artist of 2025, ending Taylor Swift's 2-year reign. According to Spotify's 2025 Wrapped data, Bad Bunny soared back to #1 worldwide, driven largely by the massive success of his album, Debe Tirama Photos. Meanwhile, Taylor Swift still held the top position in the US, but globally she settled for second place. This marks the 4th time in the decade that Bad Bunny has claimed Spotify's global top spot, and a return to dominance after Swift's 2023 to 2024 run. The timing of the win adds extra buzz. Bad Bunny is slated to headline the upcoming Apple Music Super Bowl halftime show on February 8, 2026. And that does it on entertainment news for tonight. My name is Kate Adeogun.
To fully wrap things up, here is a quick recap of our top stories tonight. President Tinubu swears in new defense minister, presents for confirmation additional names of ambassadorial nominees. Senate intensifies probe into collapse of Safe School initiative, summons Minister of Finance, Education and Defense. And off our shores, we brought you news that the U.S. President is to meet leaders of Rwanda and DR Congo in Washington to sign new peace deal and critical investment. As always, we'd love your feedback. Please share them using the number showing now on your screen. You can follow us on all social media platforms at News Central TV to stay up to date. Or you could watch News Central live on DSTV channel 422, GoTV channel 23, StarTimes channel 274, Avo TV, and on YouTube. As always, thank you very much for your kind company. Have a good night rest.